So if flow is our natural state and we're literally designed for it, how come so many people who feel like they've been doing the inner work for years still feel like they just keep getting knocked out of it?
Well, it's the rational thoughts that we have that we think about all day, every day. And we have so many negative thoughts, and it's those negative thoughts that take us out of flow. When we're judging, criticizing, comparing, competing, gossiping, these are all ways that we are completely out of flow. So if you think about it, flow starts in a space where we're in alignment.
I'm Melissa Monti, and you're listening to Mind Love.
So I like to say that there's like three different states of being. The first state of being is the negative or the lack. And it's a range of emotions, anywhere from powerlessness all the way up to boredom. And anytime we're in lack feels bad, we're out of flow. And so when we are in fear, doubt, worry, which is very, very common, those thoughts take us out of flow. And you can think about it. It just takes one thought to take us out of flow, or one thought to bring us back into flow.
It's so interesting to me how I feel like I've got multiple growth paths going and they're all aligned, but sometimes it's a different focus. Like my spiritual path is really important to me and it's always evolving. My productivity path is really important to me, just general self-development. But it's interesting how no matter which path I'm on, how many times it comes back to judgment being the thing that takes you out of where you're trying to go.
Well, there's a whole graph that I have in my new book called The Flow Factor. And in that, it really shows that, flow happens when you're in compassion or higher. So that second stage I was talking about is that neutrality. It's based on the universal law of sufficiency and abundance. So in the second bucket, if you will, or in the second, category, it's like, I'm okay, satisfaction, peace, calm. Those aren't like woohoo, really exciting, but they're like, okay, I don't feel bad. I feel good. I feel okay. I'm all right. And that level of coming to that connection brings you back into flow. But the minute we go into that's bad, that's wrong, right? Our minds naturally take us to that. And what happens is our natural survival instinct in our brain kicks in. Because when we judge something, this is bad, right? We naturally go into the fight, flight, freeze because we get into survival mode. So that first bucket of anywhere from powerlessness to boredom, it strikes up, it automatically engages our fight, flight response. And we're then in survival mode. And what's happening is the back of our brain, all the energy is going to the back to how the reactions, and no energy is going to the fore part of the brain, which is for creativity, which is higher energy from a perspective, our seventh chakra, our sixth chakra, our intuition. We're not getting any activity up there because everything's in like, okay, how am I going to wrestle this? How am I going to push this away? How am I going to, or we're in that freeze where it's like, I don't know what to do. I'm blocked. I'm stuck. Or we're like, I'm out of here, right? That's where vices come in, where we go smoke and drink and eat and all the things just to get us out of our state of being. So the most important thing for us to be in flow is us. And it's where we put our focus, where we're putting our attention. So the minute we go to, that's bad, our survival instinct kicks in and keeps us there many times. So that's why compassion, if you look at the graph in the back of the book, compassion is that energy that brings us back into neutrality. And from neutrality, then we can choose. We get more creative, or different parts of our brain are working. We're not in like this, like, oh God, I got to wrestle it to the ground, or I've got to get over this, or we're in a place of flow.
That really illustrates what it means to be your own worst enemy, doesn't it? Because
Truly.
You're actually creating nervous system states where you are resisting yourself. You're resisting where you want to go. You're your own worst enemy. Like you're the one you're fighting. Whereas so often we think it's these external circumstances.
It is. And it's interesting because it's not that we're bad or wrong or something wrong with us. It's just a natural instinct. Like I live in the middle of the desert. I live in Scottsdale. And, a lot of times I'm walking my dog and I'll see these bunnies and they'll just like either run, right? Or they'll freeze. And it's like, I can still see you, you're like, they're frozen, right? They think they're all smart. But it's just a natural animalistic part of us. Sometimes I bring my dog from my home into my office, and I have him walk on a pathway. And one day I opened the door and there was a bunny rabbit there, and he knows, he stays on the pathway, comes in my office with me. But this was beyond his, oh, I want to be good for my mom, right? Kind of thing. He saw the bunny took off, he ran after the bunny, right? It's just a natural reaction. And we have to understand that instead of judging ourselves for that, is play with it, understand that contrast, meaning what we don't want, happens all the time. It doesn't matter if you stub your toe or you get some bad news or, there's a gazillion things that could go wrong in a day, right? Even thoughts, a simple thought of, uh-oh, I don't know what to do, or I can't have that, or who am I? Those thoughts then create that, how do I protect, how do I survive this? But the minute we hear ourselves saying something negative or something that doesn't feel good, we can bring in that energy of compassion. And compassion is really misunderstood too. Compassion is this energy it just feels good. It's like, imagine light pouring through you, or your soul, just wrapping all around you. It's like your soul in front, your soul behind, your soul to the left, your soul to the right, your soul below, above, and within. And that gives a sense of comfort. But when we're doing that, it also relaxes the back of the head and the neck, which there's a release valve right where we have an indentation. And if we open that up, that energy that was all stuck and activated in there, that starts to release. And then we can bring in the energy of compassion and find that sense of, I'm okay,
Right. And it's interesting because I feel like we hear a lot about flow as a sort of peak performance. Even the book Flow by Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, or however you pronounce his last name.
I've only heard one person be able to actually, pronounce his name. So I'm with you on that.
I can do it, but I just have to practice beforehand. It has got to be top of mind. If one day goes by, I've lost it completely.
It's
often this kind of peak performance, like playing the piano, playing professional sport. But you make this distinction in your book that it's not just peak performance. There's also another type of flow that's available to everyone in any circumstance. What do you see as the difference between those two things?
Well, they're both the same, but the idea is that it's not just for action or for doing it. It's right. It's not just watching Michael Jordan, be in the flow as he dunks that, that ball, or it's not Tom Brady as he's throwing the perfect spiral to be caught and then go into the touchdown. Or it's not Elton John sitting at a piano, or it is Elton John sitting at a piano and being able to receive. What all of those people have in common, and that we as, people that are not on a basketball or football field or playing a piano, is that energy exists for us all the time. And so the energy is positive energy. See, everything is energy. We know that now from modern physics, quantum physics. Everything is energy, and all energy carries a vibration. And that vibration goes out into the universe, and it draws to you, it attracts to you more of the same vibration. Now, if we're an energy receiver, we're receiving energy all the time. If we receive in negative energy from somebody else, maybe we're picking up on somebody else's fear, doubt, or worry, we're in a conversation that doesn't feel good, and now we start to feel worry, we're out of flow. But the minute we start to bring in compassion for the fact that we're a human having this experience, or that we're hearing about someone we care about go through a really hard time, that brings us back into neutrality, and that creates that flow. So it looks like flow of love, flow of in a conversation. It looks like, oh, I think of someone and then they call me, or I think of something I need, and then all of a sudden I get an email and there's someone that's like, hey, do you need this? Right? That's also flow. I mean, you could look at it in driving, right? You're driving and you get all the green lights. That's flow. Right? There's those moments where you're like, stop light. And then you get to the next one, stop light. It's like, that feeling of I'm not getting anywhere, right? There's like something blocking me. There's something in my way. The feeling of flow, it's like all the roads are just fully open. Someone can have flow when they're with their baby, you're you experience flow when you're just in that moment where you're looking into your baby's eyes and your baby's looking at you, and there's this expansion of love, or when your baby grabs your finger. Like, those moments are also considered flow. It's not just for performance.
It's funny because we notice that level of flow a lot in our household. And it'll be something strange. Like, my kids will have a cartoon on and my husband will say something, and then the cartoon will say the exact same word. And it'll be a word that we haven't even used in a while. It happens all the time. And we're like, okay, we know we're exactly on the right track. But please tell me when you figure out how to have flow with a 3-year-old, because I've never figured that one out.
Well, that's the thing, is that they're always in flow. Kids go towards the flow. And a lot of times we as parents, we're like, no, we don't want you flowing into the traffic right now. So I have to bring you, it's like, don't flow there. So yeah, the kids are always in that space of what's next, what's fun, what can I do, right? They're looking for the next best, what can I do kind of thing. And if they're not getting it, oh boy, right? They show you, this doesn't feel good and I don't want this. And that same kind of thing, it's like that fight against push. No, I don't want to eat that broccoli, right? Whatever it is, that push against is them being in their own survival mode.
A little compassion from my end might go a long way then.
Exactly.
Instead of eat your freaking nugget. One thing I found really helpful from your book was the 5 layers of consciousness. You talked about perceptions, thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. But you said that we're co-signing our own departure from flow at every level. Tell us what that actually looks like in a real moment.
Okay, so yeah, those 5 aspects. There's words, right? Words spark, right? Words create our thoughts. Our thoughts, thought over and over and over, create a belief or a perspective, right? And then we have those thoughts, those beliefs or perspectives create the emotions, how we feel. We're thinking about visualizing something, we will have an emotion that is attached to that. If we're looking at something that feels good, or thinking about something, speaking something that feels good, then we're going to feel good. But if we're looking or talking about something that doesn't feel good to us, then we're going to feel bad. And so it's understanding that I'm catching myself in a moment of, like I said, there's one thought, just one thought can make us spiral down, but one thought could also make us spiral up. And so finding that compassion, one of the things I like to do is either put your hand over your heart, because that releases oxytocin. It actually disengages the survival mode. Or what I love most is give yourself a hug. When you give yourself a hug, it's like you're really embracing yourself, and there's a calming, because most of us want to be comforted, right? It's a soothing, comforting feeling when you hug yourself. And when you hug yourself, and you could do that anytime, it's not like, oh crap, I left my arms at home. Like, anywhere you are, when you're seeing something, when you're witnessing your child's behavior and it doesn't feel good, give yourself a hug. It'll calm you down. And once your system is calm, then you have different options and choices. I know what it's like. Both my boys are older now. They're 15 and 16, and they're 16 months apart. So I was having, 2 little ones when I was little, or when they were little. And there would be moments where I'd be like, I'm resourceless in this moment. I don't know what to do with him. I meditate, I teach this, it's like, and this is a moment where I don't know what to do. In those moments, you want to give yourself compassion, because that compassion energy, that light energy, brings you back into neutrality. And then the problem mind, the mind that's having a problem, is very, very different than the open, receptive mind, right? It's the difference between trying to figure things out from the survival experience at the back of the head and neck versus the prefrontal cortex, where you are bringing in, well, I don't know what to do, but there's a source here. There's something greater than me. I'm open to receive this. And then you can let yourself go, have that intuition, have those resources come to you. I also look at, what is really the solution to this? And I like to say there's nine aspects or 9 choices for every, problem or solution. So if something's happening, say that oh, like there's schedules are too much and there's, we don't know how to fit everything in. It's like, all right, what's the solution? Can you drive them? Can I drive them? Can we have them take an Uber? Can we someone pick them up? Right? You start looking for the different solutions to solve this particular problem. And that gets your mind not continuing to focus on what's wrong and bad, but what are the options and what are the choices? And then from listing those 9, some of them will be silly, right? Have them walk home, right? You get to one that actually feels good and actually is the solution.
Where does the 9 come from?
There's a mandala. It's like when you bring your hands together and you make a butterfly. I learned this from my teacher many years ago, that there's always 9 options for any given situation. I mean, you could say 10, 12, but it's like thinking that, okay, there's at least 9 options here, right? That gets your mind focusing on abundance instead of lack. You're looking at, there's so much here. I may not see it yet, but as I start to move into it, because like attracts like, right? Law of attraction. So when I start to look for the solution and start writing them out or listing them out, my mind is in a different place rather than, well, this is the problem. I don't know how to fix it. I'm stuck, and being in that survival mode. Listing it out, looking for choices and option gets you out of that survival mode and back into flow.
It's just interesting to me because so often you hear that 9 is a God number. It's the divine number. There's so many different things about 9, the multiplication of 9. No, so many things about 9. But so I love that it comes back to that, or even my spiritual side wonders, just that focus on 9, even if there's 12 or 8 or whatever, but the focus on 9, does it put my energy in a different state of consciousness just a little bit, or maybe open it to something higher than my own mind?
Absolutely. Because it's just, again, if our mind is stuck on, I don't know what to do, and then you remind yourself there's options here. If you just go, oh, there's options, right? It's okay, well, what are they? But it's like, no, there are 9 options. Start looking for them, start listing them out. And again, the first couple might be silly. Like, he can walk home, he can take a bus, right? Then it might be like, well, I could change this, or he can go here. Like you're looking for what the possibilities are. When your mind is focused on possibilities, you find possibilities. When your mind is focused on restrictions, you find restrictions.
Yeah. One of the things that you talk about too is how our perception is never really a direct read on reality. We're always interpreting, like our minds are meaning-making machines.
Yes.
But there's something that I've thought about and gotten back and forth with quite a bit. For example, I had a horrible relationship in my 20s. I was gaslit at every turn. I made all the wrong decisions, or all the decisions for my highest path of growth, but they were the hardest ones at the time. And now part of me sees that as a gift, because it is very hard to gaslight me. Like, I'm the first to put on that radar. And so people who've experienced real pain, real betrayal, real loss, isn't that response to threat actually accurate sometimes? But then I can also recognize that there might be times where I'm like, that person's gaslighting you, and maybe they're a lovely person. They're not doing that at all. I'm more prone to see it. And like I said, sometimes it's a gift, but sometimes it might be overactive. How do you kind of keep it in that safe space, or the space where it's actually beneficial?
Yeah. So all of us have had moments, right, that imprint us, and some are great, some are not so good, and some are really, really traumatic and painful. And so those inform us. Those are moments of contrast where we get to then, from those moments, right, say, okay, am I going to let this bring me down and not ever trust anybody ever again? Or am I going to find compassion and think about what kind of relationship I do want? I was the same way, dated bad boys. If there was a bad boy around, I was attracted to him. And, smokers, drinkers, totally unavailable, cheaters, the whole thing. And that was my 20s up until I found what I do now, what I teach now, law of attraction, energy work. And as soon as I did, the first thing I did was I shifted my own level of self-love within me. And I took those moments of men treating me badly, because that's what I thought I deserved. That's what I was vibrating. But as soon as I started to cultivate self-love and compassion, and saying no to the things that didn't feel good to me. I used to be a smoker and I stopped smoking, right? That act of stopping smoking actually opened up a new level of self-love and self-respect. And what also then happened after I got quit smoking and started cultivating that, I started attracting very, very different men. I was in a marriage for 8 years, long relationship for 8 years with a really, really nice guy. We outgrew each other. I outgrew him. But that let me, like, all that I healed during that relationship, because my big thing was abandonment. I felt that I healed my abandonment during that relationship. Well, then comes along my husband now of 20 years, and we're more in love today than we ever were. And he would never have been someone I would have been attracted to, or he wouldn't have been attracted to me, because I just wasn't in that space. I was in a space of beating myself up and being really negative. And so, of course, that's what I attracted, for people to treat me, or men to treat me, is treat me negatively, because that's how I treat myself. So as soon as I started to treat myself better and start to be more conscious of the way I spoke to myself and what I deserve and all that, of course, I attract a man that is just, a really, really nice man, connected, totally opposite of those men that I used to date before. But the work was internal that I had to do. And that internal work was finding those places where, and that's the work what I do with people, is finding those places where you get imprinted and being able to go back to that time, release that energy. Because here's what happens. We have a moment where, say, you're gaslit, or someone abandons you, or someone cheats on you, or someone passes, or something tragic happens. Maybe you're so in debt, you're like, I don't know how to get out of it, right? So something contrasting happens, and most people stay in that survival mode and push against it. But as soon as you start to bring yourself compassion for being in that situation, you start to move. Most people don't do that. What happens is you're going along, something happens, and then we get a wave of emotions. Maybe we're angry or afraid, and we don't know how to process our emotions. So that emotion or that energy gets contained, right? And if we don't process it, it gets contained in the cells, in the body, in the emotional body. And then energy doesn't just stop. Energy keeps moving. It moves and moves and moves. I kind of think of it like a caged lion at a zoo, right? It's going around and around its cage. It's moving. It's not just, it's wanting to get out, right? That energy is wanting to find a way out. But in the process of doing it, it creates a vortex of energy that then, because it's activated, draws more. So if you're trying to suppress feeling disappointed in something and you haven't processed that emotion, what's going to happen is you're going to keep attracting situations, circumstances, events that match that disappointment until you're able to then let the disappointment out. So the new, now us person is now receiving a new experience that creates this disappointment, and it's activating all the other times we were disappointed. So it's in the red hot moment that you're feeling fear, worry, doubt, disappointment, whatever it may be, that when you can bring your focus and attention down into your emotional body, which is actually the belly, your lower belly, and you can start to feel and let that energy pulsate out. It takes about 90 seconds to process emotion. Sometimes it's one and done. Other times it might take a few, right? If someone I don't know, I've had this happen before. Some woman, it was around COVID. I was walking out of a grocery store, and this woman came with a really aggressive car, just, came parking next to me, and my eyes must have been I must have been shocked. I was shocked. I didn't expect that. And she gets out of her car and just starts, "What's your problem?" And starts screaming at me. And I'm like, I don't have a problem. I got in my car and I was like, what is her deal? Like, in my, my obviously survival mode, my fight, flight, freeze got activated. I'm like, what's her problem? So now my mind is fighting against her, right? Until I was able to just bring myself compassion for having that experience, I could then go down into my belly and feel the release of that shock, feel the release of that anger or that frustration of this woman. And then I was able to find compassion for her because clearly she was not having a good moment. Right. And so that's the way I cleared that energy. So if you're constantly feeling, and I've done this with anger, most of my life, I was angry, and anything would just set off me feeling angry. And that's what I needed to do, is that when I found myself in the moment being angry, I would process it, but I would also release it from those other points in time so that I'm fully cleaning and clearing the container that I am, because we are energy receivers, we're energy containers, and we're energy transmitters. So what we're holding in our consciousness, we are transmitting out, and we will attract more of the same.
There's so much that came up when you were sharing that. One thing that has come up for me a lot is realizing, like, so often when we think we're projecting this emotion, like we're having this emotion because of someone, we're interpreting it as all about that other person, but we are the ones holding it in our bodies. So we're the ones magnetizing and attracting it. And I have really been training myself to look at my triggers, people that are showing me something, as mirroring a part of me that needs to be healed. So it's a gift, really. And it's so difficult to do, especially in the moment, because you want to punch them in the face. Or like, you're like, why have you not been doing all the inner work? This is obviously you, because this doesn't come up with anybody else. Like, I'm just repeating a combo I have all the time with my mother in my head. But then I'm like, we were given to each other. And so if I'm just dismissing it as the only difficult relationship in my life, then I'm also dismissing this part that I'm refusing to look at, that other people aren't powerful enough to trigger in me because they haven't been with me throughout my entire soul journey. And so there's that aspect of it, and just being like a little more curious rather than resisting everything, because it might open up a part of you that you are exiling, that you're ignoring, that needs to be healed. Otherwise, you wouldn't be so angry at this person right now. But I also love the story that you talk about with the relationship that was almost a stepping stone, because I think a lot of people just look at things as failure or success. And I remember I had a relationship right after my most traumatic relationship. And I was the toxic one in that relationship. We weren't compatible, but I picked a lot of fights, and I was not used to somebody being faithful. And so conversations like that came up. I was just suspicious. And after that relationship ended, there was a lot of reflecting, because I think it was the healthiest relationship I had to that point. And again, not compatible on so many levels, but just the way he said certain things to me, I just could sit with them. And I saw how I was starting fights because that level of calm in a relationship didn't feel safe to my nervous system. I was never really used to it. But then the other thing that came up when you were talking was how often different things come up and you're like, well, I want to go back to what I was just saying, because that stepping stone, though, it's like some people aren't meant to be permanent, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a relationship, but you're both in each other's journey to get you to that next place.
Yeah.
Just like any other step, just like any other action step. And the last thing that came up was around just the judgment of our own emotions. I talk a lot about how so often we get to this point like, oh, I should be over this. I thought I already processed this. But like you said, like some of these things run really deep and they come up, and you don't have to sit there and stew in the story, but maybe just be accepting. Just say something like to yourself of, oh, this is here again. It must need something from me. And usually it's just to be felt and released. It's like finding another pocket, finding a drawer that you haven't cleansed yet, you know? And so what happens if we remove the judgment of I should be over this, I should whatever, and that resistance where we're getting in our own way, and allow the flow to happen? Because think of that flow on so many levels, the energetic, the mindset, but also the emotional. Like, let it flow through you. If that means you're crying for the next 90 seconds to 10 minutes, just cry. No one's going backwards. This is actually you flowing forwards into your next step, or seeing what's beyond what was beyond this blockage.
I have so much to say now. So, okay, first of all, your mom, like my mom, is my greatest, your greatest teacher, right? It's like, okay, grasshopper, you are the guru here. You are master teacher, and I get to practice with your presence, with the things you say or do, or mannerisms or that kind of thing. I get to then understand that there are still wounds within me that I get to clear. So that's absolutely, absolutely essential. The other thing I was going to say is when we ended my last marriage, my first husband was married before, and he said to me, "Great, another failed marriage." And I said, "No, I don't hold it like this. We had a beautiful 8-year relationship. I grew a lot. My soul is looking at this relationship going, yes, congratulations. Like you healed through this relationship. Places where you felt abandoned, you no longer are. You were trusting a man that could be loyal and committed and, a good guy. So that 8 years is a success. Did that relationship end and not last the length of time? It wasn't supposed to. And so that was a stepping stone for me to be able to be with my husband, Frederick, and have 2 kids with him and have the life that we have together. All of it was a stepping stone. And yet the energy of someone does something, says something, right? And it hurts you. We're human, right? We have human emotions. And most of us were not encouraged because our moms, our grandmothers were not encouraged. We was like, oh, just stop crying. I remember my grandmother, when I was little, I was angry about something and she said, stop it. You're acting just like your father, which was like, oh, can't act like my dad was like a rageaholic, right? And he's always angry. So when she said that to me, it was like, okay, I got to stop being angry, right? So I've got to stop feeling. And I had my mom all the time say, well, don't be disappointed. Life is full of disappointments. Don't be disappointed. And so this message of only, don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about. I actually learned from my son, Maxim, when he was about 4 years old. I was processing emotions, doing all this healing. And we were taking a drive. I took my husband for a birthday gift, and he was going to go drive a Ferrari and a Lamborghini on a racetrack, right? And that was his birthday gift. So we had to drive like 45 minutes away. And my son, we're about 20 minutes away from the house, not even 20 minutes away. He goes, I want to go home. I miss my home. And I just turned around at him and I just grabbed his hand and, I let him cry and I just let him just have his emotions and, feel sad because he missed his home. And then about 90 seconds, he wiped his tears and he's like, oh, a cow, It was like, okay, it's over now. And he was fine for the rest of the day. Had that been me in the back of the car, my mom would have turned around and said, stop that. Don't be an idiot. Stop, don't cry. I'll give you that. That's ridiculous. We're only going 45 minutes away. You shouldn't be blah, blah. I know that whole conversation. And I would have had to stuff my emotions and stop crying because the big people weren't comfortable with emotions. And that was what the key was. They didn't know how to process it. They were afraid of it. And so they told us to stop it. But now we're a generation where it's like, no, our emotions are part of the human experience. Our emotions are a guidance system. My emotions let me know I'm disappointed with something. I'm hurt right now. And like you said, I've had a friendship with a girlfriend. I have 5 like solid ride or die friendships that I've known, one since I was in 7th grade, another high school, 2 in high school, to another college, one all my life. This woman who I have been friends with since college, we've been through everything together. Her daughter is getting married, right? And she's having a big old wedding and I'm not invited. Ouch. Ouch. Because I know her daughter, right? So when she told me this, that we're going to do a second reception, I'm like thinking to myself, I didn't make the cut for the wedding, right? It's like, wow, ouch. I thought I meant more to you than that, right? I thought our friendship was more than that, right? So that whole thing I had to sit with. And when I processed the emotions of it and really felt it, it's like, wow, I guess I'm not special. That's my own. That's not about her. That's not about her daughter. This reflection is me feeling like, well, I guess I'm not enough and I'm not special enough. And that is my wound within me that I got to heal, that I keep, when I think about it, I go, I am special, I am enough. I get to feel the feeling of not being invited, excluded, right? Not feeling like I'm included. Ow, that hurts as a human being to be excluded from something. I get to bring compassion, give myself that hug, tell myself words of affirmation because it's energy, inviting in the compassion, giving yourself something somatic like a hand on the heart or a hug, and then telling yourself it's going to be okay. I am special. I am good. I am enough, you know? And that's how you move through that energy. But that idea that why am I so hurt? Well, because I care and all that. I thought the relationship meant more to me or, meant more than it does, blah, blah, blah. But there's the assumptions too. Like you were saying, the perception and the assumptions. My gift through all this is that I get to heal those places within me that still don't feel like enough or still don't feel special. That's my job, not hers. Go have a great wedding.
I resonate with that so much. That's like, I talk about it too much, so I'm not going to talk about it too much right now, but it's about like the belonging, the exclusion. And it's interesting that I've chosen this path because I find the more intentional you get, the less relatable you are to the general population. So I just feel even more excluded, but then I have to remind myself, I don't want to fit in with the general population. It's why I'm doing all of this. But it reminds me of that quote that's, I know it's widely attributed to Tesla, but the one about if you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And that just keeps coming up during this conversation in my mind that I wish, or maybe I'm just ready for it now, or it needs like a supporting paragraph of like, what do you mean? Yeah, so I'm thinking of it in terms of energy. I've been doing that for 20 years now. But what about the energy? Where it's flowing, where it's getting blocked, where you're resisting it. If you just add that little piece of it, people can actually think and you can see it flowing through so many of your things, whether it's the layers of consciousness that you talk about, whether it's what we're actually doing in the moment versus speaking to ourselves versus how we're thinking about it. I was giving my husband a pep talk because he's going through this really exciting business opportunity. And so, you know how a big opportunity is when you're stepping through like a portal into your next level. There's so many things that come up and it'll be like a day of total excitement. And then like, what am I even doing? I'm a fraud, And so I'm so grateful to be with another entrepreneur because we know how to pep talk each other. But I'm like, bro, you are a conduit for this energy. You're thinking about this in terms of when you first heard about it, but you've been building to this for 15 years. You have been the conduit of flowing, making all of these big nonprofits, companies, whatever, huge amounts of success. And now you've attracted this opportunity. It's come to you. Like, just instead of picturing yourself as the person who needs to know it all and make sure everything's figured out, just trust that you are still the conduit for that energy, that you're still just allowing it to flow. You're going to take action when you're clear. You're going to allow room for clarity when you're not. And he's like, yeah. And as it happens after that pep talk, like that's how it keeps happening. And so there was another block in this step where it's like, well, I don't know what to send about this. It's like, maybe it's because you're not supposed to send this right now. And you're supposed to get clarity on this call. And then you're supposed to know what to send. And he's like, that's a good point. And that's one thing that I'm always sharing with people is we always want to have everything figured out, but you only really need to know the next step and actually take action on that to not be blocking your own energy flow.
Yeah.
And then the next one will be revealed. But we let it stop us because we're like, I only know the next step. I don't know the other one. So I'm just not going to do anything. Well, now you've blocked yourself.
Absolutely. So a couple things on this. So I remember Jack Canfield said in the movie The Secret that you could drive from LA to New York and only need to see 100 feet in front of you because you could drive in the dark, right? And all you need to do is the focus is on the next 100 steps and the next 100 feet. But when most people don't know and really don't realize that happens is that when you set a bigger intention from where you are right now, right? You set that intention. This is what I want. This is why I want it. This is how I want to feel. This is the deeper need, right? You're focusing on that. Everything that's not of that higher vibration of that intention within you is going to come up. So, because that's going to come up in order to be healed so that you can match that thing, that intention, that whatever it is that you want. So if you ever noticed, right, one of my books that I wrote is called The Desire Factor. We are desire creators. Like, we get a desire. Desire gets received from us. Now, a desire received from you and me of the same thing might be received differently. I might go, no way, Jose. You might go, oh, heck yeah, right? But we receive the desires either way. And what we do with it, it's like, yes, I want that. Okay, well, if I'm saying yes to this, any part of me that's not in vibrational alignment with it needs to come up. That might mean I need to cry and release that pain. It might mean that I need to let go of the thing that I'm not special enough. It might mean that I need to let go of that resistance towards my mom and buoy up so that I can be in a vibrational alignment. And as soon as you get there, what happens? Another desire. Our desires are meant to grow us. At the end of it, when you think about it, at the end of this opportunity for your husband, it'll be the opportunity, all the good stuff, the resources that come with it. But at the end of it, who he becomes in the process of this and all those different growth points, that's the juice. That's what it's about.
Oh, I just had like one of those epiphany, greater understandings of a concept that comes up in so many different areas. We know I saw a reel once that talks about like when you're on the precipice of your next big step, the universe squeezes you like it's supposed to happen. And we know about this. And even back when I was raised religious, you'd hear like, when you know what you want, like Satan comes at that point. And it's just so funny to me. Like there's all these different frameworks, whether you're religious, spiritual, just trying to be productive. And it talks about how like a ton of resistance might come up that you need to move through, but it doesn't necessarily teach you why. And what you explained is the why, where right now, if you want to move forward, we need to highlight for you all of the ways that you're getting in your own way so that you can become the person who's ready for this next step. It's not that there's just some demon sitting here trying to knock you down and keep you where you are. So I'm like a religious deconstructionist. So I have a lot of Christian references, but it's just funny how often like, it's like the bare bones of a concept, but there's not really the transformation around it. It might explain what's happening, but not why, not how to get through it. And so that's what I love the broader spiritual path for, is because I've actually been able to find those answers of the things that didn't make sense. But yeah, it's not punishment. It's not like somebody's trying to just get in your way. It is your challenge for becoming the person who can hold the energy of your big vision.
Yes, hold it and receive it and also stay with it, right? Because you could hit a certain vibration. You know, people can reach a certain level of wealth, but then it goes back down because they're not matching that certain level. And so matching that certain level goes back to what we're talking about. The only thing that we have creative control, and it's big, is what we say, what we think, what we believe, what we feel, and what we do. And beyond that, what others say or think or, feel, that's out of our control. So, what our mother says to us or what our husbands or what our kids, right? Yes, it affects us, but at the same time, we get to decide. We get to choose how to perceive it. We can then go, that was painful. Let me process that emotion so I'm not staying stuck in that pain, in that discomfort, in that, in that lie of being in this emotion that I'm not loved or that I'm not this, or because our minds can go, oh, I'm justifying it. She doesn't love me, or she's too this, or I'm never enough, or I'm not good enough, or whatever it is. And all of that is where we can decide, we can refocus. And I like to say it's very simple, but when you find yourself in a state of feeling suppressed or limited or in lack of any kind, open up the back of the head and neck and imagine that energy is releasing out, because that's going to help the energetics of it. Go down into your belly if you've picked up something, right? So you're letting that energy out and it's not contained in your body anymore. And then give yourself compassion. And then you don't want to stay just in compassion. You want to go, okay, let's get into the creator consciousness, right? I do a whole course called Mastering Flow, and it's the 5 C's of flow. And after you bring in compassion, then it's like, okay, I'm getting clear. Let the contrast bring the clarity. What do I want? Why do I want it? How do I want to feel? And then really what's most important is like, what is that need that I have? Right? So when I was like, okay, what do I want? Why do I want it? What is that need? I want to be included. I want to matter. Right? Well, that's not up to anybody else to make me feel. Nobody can make me feel that way. I have to cultivate that. And that energy of fulfillment is available to me now. And I can layer it on with, I am fulfilled with inclusion, with being included, with belonging, with, whatever it is, feeling free, feeling secure. Because think about it this way. Everything is energy, right? I like to think of it as piano. Like when you go to see a piano, right? There's keys, notes on that piano. It's going to be the same keys and notes for anybody that plays it. Doesn't matter if it's Mozart or me. Anybody that plays that piano, it's going to be the same tone. We are the ones that are choosing those tones. We're the ones that are choosing the vibrations. We're choosing the song that we want to play. And that's what it's like with the universe. It's like, think of, there's a whole tone, there's a whole range of vibrations. And as soon as we choose it and we think about it, we focus on it, we start to bring that energy in, and then we can match it.
I love when new terms get brought into my life, because it's like I'm a words person. I've even gotten the message in plant medicine ceremonies that words are my medicine. And so I'm always going through words. Like they'll notice when suddenly something has too much connotation and I'm like, I got to drop this word. I don't use manifesting anymore, or I don't use this anymore. Like it's just not resonating. And now there's more blocks than flow for me. But I love this term that you introduced to me, that you coined the term bushwhack, for when something just kind of pulls you out of flow suddenly, seemingly out of nowhere, because I realized I never really had a word for that. But I'm curious, what is actually happening in those moments neurologically and energetically?
So yeah, let's do it. You're going along, right? Okay, I'll do that. I'm sitting there with my girlfriend having lunch, and she's telling me all about her daughter's wedding. And then she says, oh, by the way, we're not inviting a lot of people. It's a big wedding, but we're not. So we're going to invite you to the second reception. Wait, what? I'm not invited to your daughter's wedding? Wait, what? You don't want your best friend there at your daughter's what? That's a bushwhack. That was a bushwhack, right? So feel what you do in that moment is, I had to just breathe and I had to feel, this is an ouch. Whoa. And I expressed it to her. Got to tell you, I'm hurt. Oh, but you only invited the second one. So I'm the second team, I'm the second string, right? No, it's not like that. Well, that's how I feel. That doesn't feel good, right? So the part of me that would naturally go, all right, I'm not your friend anymore. I cut off from you. I don't, I got to go, right? The fight, flight, freeze. That's the natural instinct that we have when we have a bushwhack. And so that I just was able to go right in front of her. I went down into my belly while we were talking, and I felt the hurt, and I let myself feel my heart, just feel what I was feeling, so that I could let that go, bring in the compassion, continue my lunch with her, continue my conversation. I got in the car, called my husband. I'm like, what the? And he's like, what? I go, yeah. Wow, you must be really hurt. Yeah, I am. So another wave of emotions came over, and then I let myself cry while I was in my car. That really hurt, letting myself feel that, bringing myself back into compassion, right? That's moving the energy. If it comes up again and I think about it, it's like, oh, okay, wait. Let me feel the hurt. Let me feel the sadness. Let that go. Process that. Bring in the compassion. all right, what do I want to focus on? I have lots of friends who love me. I am loved by my husband. I am included, and let myself feel that. That's what's helping me move through that bushwhack. I've had some big bushwhacks in my life, and I'm telling you, this stuff works. I've had my sister commit suicide, and hearing that was a bushwhack. I went through a divorce, right? I've been fired from a job where I was a pharmaceutical sales rep and number one in my district, and I was fired. I was asked to let go. You could either quit or we're going to fire you. Bushwhack, right? These are moments where you got to process how we think about it. Because if I was to go in that, say, the marriage, right? Oh, it's a fail. I failed. Now I'm holding myself as a failure instead of processing the energy and going, no, okay, I'm ready for a new relationship. These are the qualities I want. This is why I want it. This is how I want to feel. Having a relationship is important to me. And being able to move through and being informed by those situations. How my relationship with my friend will end, I don't know. But that informed me of something, right? It informed me that there's places within me that don't feel included, or that I matter, or that I'm special. And that's for me. What that will do to the relationship, I don't know. But it's the
Mm.
inner work for me that I need to work on.
A lot of times, just the way I'm visualizing something will help me create the experience of it. And so I'm curious for you, how often are you thinking about the energy moving through you versus the energy you're holding? Because one's more movement. It's like we want to hold compassion, we want to hold this love, we want to hold the vision, but we also want to allow room for the movement of anything that might be bigger than we can currently hold. So how are you visualizing that?
So I do something every day, several times a day, because it's like drinking water or eating or going to the bathroom. Like managing and mastering your own energy is a daily thing, and it's throughout the day, right? So what I like to do is, the first thing I do is I open up the back of my head and neck, and anything I'm thinking about, I imagine that's releasing out. If I find myself in a moment where I'm in survival mode, say I'm fighting in my head with someone, or I'm like, I don't know what to do, or I'm like, I got to get out of here, right? I let that energy release out the back of my head and neck. I bring myself down into my belly, and I command any energy that is not of compassion or lower, or compassion or higher, to release. So I'm releasing that, and then I'm bringing in the light. So I'm always bringing in. I'm thinking about, ooh, I want to feel successful in this conversation. I want to bring in that energy of success. And as I do it, I bring it into my container, and I'm holding that. And then that's what I'm transmitting out. So it's a daily, all day, every day. And it doesn't take long to do it. I mean, just the thought of standing under a waterfall of light and letting myself be fulfilled, that takes 10 seconds maybe. And it makes all the difference in the world. I remember years ago, I was walking into this grocery store that I go to, and they have coffees and teas and stuff like that. And at that point in my life, this is about 10 years ago, I was very addicted to coffee. I was like coffee, coffee all day long, right? And I got to a point where it's like, that was that time of day again, 2:00 in the afternoon. I need to go get that coffee. So I got out of the car. I'm walking into the grocery store to literally go get the third cup of coffee for the day. And I heard myself say, I'm so tired. And my guides said to me, go back to the car. And I went back to the car, and they said, fill up with the energy of vitality. So I started imagining that I was being filled up with the energy of vitality, that I was full of energy, and that I had as much energy as I needed to get through the day. I didn't get out of my car and go into the grocery store. I actually went home, and I stopped drinking coffee from then, because my mind was focused on, I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted, I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted. So I need something to get me out of being tired and exhausted, whether it be sugar, chocolate, coffee, whatever it is. It's the vice that I am not feeling aligned and in flow. I'm not feeling good as I am. So I need to go find something to go do, eat, smoke, whatever it is, in order to feel good. But what happens is, if we're out of alignment, it takes us further out of alignment instead of bringing us back into alignment. But by literally telling myself and feeling the energy of, I have all the energy I need. I could feel the vitality. It's like that piano, right? That vitality note was the one I was playing. I was hooking up. I was tuning into that frequency, got filled up with it. And I was like, I'm good to go. And I don't tell myself I'm tired or exhausted anymore.
Why didn't we have this conversation at the beginning of my pregnancy? But I can use it for this 39 weeks, up to 42, who knows?
And when the baby is born, yes.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
That won't go away.
Well, I love leaving listeners one thing to do or to think about just to ground this into the reality. And that was a really actionable exercise. So it might be what you just shared, but just leaving the space in case there's anything else you want to really have them ground into their real lives this week.
Yes. And so and you had said this too, so I'm really excited about this. Years ago, I would have people during interviews when I was, promoting books, they'd be like, okay, you're talking about, there are all these very esoteric spiritual principles. How do we ground this in? And what do we do? And I said, you have to watch your words. Words are important. Words are the spark of everything. And if there are words or phrases that you say that do not feel good, change the word. And one of them for me, my husband, I would be going on a trip, and he's like, all right, what's the budget? And I'm like, I
hate that word too.
Oh, I hate budget. You just ruined the trip. I don't want to go on my trip and think, I got a budget. He goes, okay, can we choose a different word? And I'm like, yeah. So he's like, what do you want to allocate? And I'm like, ooh, I like that better, right? So if there are words like manifesting or, whatever it is that for whatever reason you don't feel good about, what's another word? But I created a free 30-day program that has 30 different videos that are 2 to 4 minutes in length that tell you what not to say, why, and what to say instead. Because it makes a huge difference when you change these words, especially when they're something that's habitual, like I can't afford, or I shouldn't do that, or I should have done that, right? Or I'll try. These type of words, they pull our energy down right into that first bucket of lack. They're coming from lack. And so when we know, wait, okay, I've just said that doesn't feel good. Give myself compassion. What am I going to say instead? You have 30 words and phrases available. So go to watchyourwords.com and you can join that program. And it makes a huge difference in how you feel, what you think about, and ultimately what you create.
I agree completely. Words are so powerful. We discount them quite often. We even did a whole episode recently on how the words "I'll try" create this self-sabotage network in your brain. So that's probably an amazing program. And thank you so much for everything that you've put into this work. I find it's so rare these days for somebody to be in the law of attraction space that actually it really opens me up to new information just because I've been in this space for so long. And I just found your book fascinating and really adding to a number of these things that I didn't realize was missing a little piece. And it just needed that cherry on top for me to be like, it's flowing now. So for listeners that are resonating as much as I am, where's the best place for them to connect and find your book?
You could go anywhere online and, any local bookstore, you could maybe order if they don't have it, but it is The Flow Factor, or you can go to theflowfactorbook.com. It'll tell you all the different online places to get it.
Want to work through this week's Mind Love Challenge with others? The Mind Love Collective is a free community with monthly themed calls, weekly challenge accountability, and real support throughout the year. So join us at mindlove.com/join. Thanks for giving your mind a little love today, and I'll see you next week.